Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining the podcast today. I'm very excited to be welcoming back Kamesh Peter Iacovello, business partner here at The Sanctuary and Lord of Love. And also our new guest, Paul Newell, who describes himself as a change agent working with men, helping them to bring ease and flow, and I'm going to say this word, magnificence into their life. So really honored that they were able to create the space for this today during these times. And we're going to dive deeper into a podcast actually that Paul did a few weeks ago with Kamesh about the masculine and the feminine. And I have felt that this topic is so important to understand how to use these energies to navigate life, and in particular during these challenging times. So we will be diving a little bit more deeply into what those energies are, what they mean, how we can actually access them in such a way to bring about peace and harmony and prosperity. So get ready.
I'm Stephanie Filardi. Welcome to Mind the Gap, the podcast. I believe many people fall short of living the life of their dreams simply because they get stuck in what I call the gap. The vision behind this podcast is to help you understand how to navigate the gap and in the process, awaken to the life that is waiting for you. It starts now. Let's go.
So we'll begin by taking 3 conscious breaths wherever you are. Give yourself permission to take a big inhale through the nose. And then when you exhale, let it go out of your mouth with a sigh, releasing and emptying. And then again, inhale, filling up. Exhale, release, let go, surrender. Let's do 2 more times. Inhale, filling up. Exhale, sweet release, let it go. And then again, inhale, filling. Exhale, emptying, let it all out, sigh it out. And as you exhale it out, feel the physical body starting to relax a little bit more deeply into this present moment so that perhaps you can receive support and receive the wisdom that's here for you today by listening. So I'd like to start with Paul. Tell us a little bit about, if you will, what inspired you to discuss the masculine and the feminine a couple of weeks ago? What was the reason? What called you to do that?
So I'm on a journey right now to dive more into my feminine energies. It started off, I have some hip discomfort and concerns. So the guy that I'm working with, it's on the left side. So left side is the feminine, right side is the masculine. So when I started working with this energy worker, she discussed about how, and I knew about the feminine being on the left side, and she said it was really time for me to dive more into that and focus on more of my self-love. So she has me, she suggested I do a sex detox for 6 months and focus on this time of loving myself more, which she said was more along the lines of feminine energy. And from my conditioning as a man, I'm like, every time I heard feminine energy, I thought it was act more like a woman or act more like a female. And it's so much more than that. So that's what had me decide to do the podcast, because I think that more men get to have that in here, that conversation.
Beautiful. So you said you noticed the physical discomfort in your hips. So it was a physical thing that manifested?
Yes. Yep.
Interesting. I'm happy you said that, because I feel like, and I don't want to really go too far off a tangent here, but recognizing that body, mind, and spirit are connecting and connected, it sounds like your physical body was trying to get your attention in order to deal with the emotional, spiritual body. Yeah. Oh, that feminine energy.
Oh, listen, I gotta tell you, can I tell a quick story? Like, so when we did this energy work, right? Like when she helped me tap into what my hip was saying on the left side, it was like the conversations I was having with my hip in that left side was like, when I was married, it was like that time when my wife would bicker at me for something, and I knew damn well she was right. But my stubborn ass, I was like, no, well, I'm going to wait. And all of a sudden, whatever she had said was coming to fruition. So it was like that. My feminine side was speaking to me, and now I'm finally getting to understand and hear what it's saying. So it was wild to experience that. I was like, oh my God, this is really a conversation. So
Beautiful.
Yeah, it does manifest in the physical.
Thank you for sharing. So, Kamesh, would love to know a little bit about, I don't know, your interest in talking about the masculine and the feminine, because clearly you do a lot of work with people individually and in groups with your yoga and your coaching and meditation and massage and all of your healing work. Profound. Tell me a little bit about, if you will, just what does it mean to you? Why is it important? Why is it an important conversation to have?
I can only speak from this frame of reference that because the male figure was not modeled for me, as I said in the podcast with Paul, I grew up with a lot of feminine energy, meaning I was raised by my mom for the most part, shared a bedroom with my sister, have a daughter, have a granddaughter, nieces that I'm very close to. So, and I've always been very, very close to my mom. So like feminine energy has always been prevalent for me. And it was always modeled for me as caring and nurturing and a good listener, support, unconditional love, So what was so amazing about the connection with Paul during our podcast and the question of the masculine and feminine, I felt like, not to brag, but I felt like I was the best person for it.
Agree.
Yep. That's why I asked you. I was like, come on, Kamesh, please.
And because of the chosen profession that I have, it's more female oriented. There are now, but when I went to massage school, there was 2 males, myself being one of them in my class. When I went to my yoga teacher training, there's only 2 males, one of them being myself. So it's although it's a female dominated, supposedly environment to work in, it feels natural to me. It feels natural to me. And being in a giving, loving environment like the sanctuary, or if I'm teaching a yoga class, wherever I go, that nurturing quality or that was instilled in me follows me, and it's just welcoming, abundant, open, sincere, non-pretentious. So I felt like that was what was so inviting about Paul's podcast.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I can attest to, Peter's nourishing ways, because I've known him now for over 20 years or something, and it's refreshing. So what I think is important, there's so many things I could say, but I'm trying to be mindful of our time together. So one thing I do feel called to say is that I want to acknowledge the both of you for having this conversation. Because yes, in this field of wellness, yoga, meditate, whatever coaching you want to call it, there tends to be a lot of females that are practitioners, and also a lot of females that come in for services. And I feel that part of this conversation, speaks to maybe some of the ideas and stories and beliefs about men and the masculine energy, about not showing your feelings and having to be strong, and how do we navigate this time right now, dealing with this pandemic in such a way where clearly everybody is feeling this. And I, as a woman, as a nurturer who in the past has so identified with masculine energy, which is interesting. So my job has been to kind of bring in more of the feminine, but I feel the masculine energy, and I feel men. And I feel like we need to help them. We need to love them. We need to support them. We need to give them permission to let it go.
Right.
To not feel like they have to hold it all together emotionally, financially, whatever it is. So I want to acknowledge you both for that, because both of you demonstrate the masculine and the feminine so beautifully in my experience of you. And I feel like you have big work to do in the world, guys. So I'm putting that out there, and I'm a support for you. So one of the things that fascinates me about the masculine energy and the feminine energy, and just to reiterate, the reason why I use that language is because we all have both, and some of us access one more than the other. So when I think of masculine energy and I think of feminine energy and I think of what's going on right now in the world, the masculine to me is very much about the doing. It's doing, it's very yang energy, it's very rigid and fixed and strong and forceful, sometimes stubborn, real focused, right? Which is beautiful, because there are times where we need to be that. We live in a physical world. We have to do. That's required of us, right? Unless we're sitting on the mountain all day and have someone to provide. And the way I see feminine energy is being. So more of the yin, agile, soft, allowing, which Peter, you use that word a lot, open, expansive. And I feel like right now, a lot of people are experiencing a pause in the doing because of the fact that many of us have to stay at home. Some of us have jobs that have ended temporarily. So I feel like there's a portion of the population that's really struggling with having all this time and then having all these emotions. So I would love for you both to speak a little bit. Maybe we'll start with Paul about, in the context of what's going on, how can we activate and access this masculine and feminine energy to get through this time?
Yeah, that's a great question. My thoughts on that are to be more in the being piece and allowing, surrender. The biggest piece I can see is adaptability, because being in a space of being rigid and just by our society, Stephanie, it's we're taught, okay, this is when you go to work, this is when you go to school, this is when you do this, then when you do that. There's this routine of like the doing. So when that routine or that structure is broken down, then it's a moment of, okay, well, what do I do? And I think in this moment, with everything slowing down, I think it's very relevant for people to first take a step back and to surrender, assess your skill set. So that's nurturing self, being patient with yourself, being intuitive with yourself. And then from there, do. Because being in that space of like assessing who I am, where I am, like what am I feeling, that gives that will give people the ability to see, well, I should really be I get to move in this way, because I have a theory right now with everything going on. By the time this is all over, people are going to be in different jobs, they're going to be in different relationships, and there may be some people in jail due to domestic violence because they have no idea of how to handle and work with their emotions. So I think being in that space of being is huge right now, because then we get to see the field, as I like to say, what's happening inside and then what's happening outside.
So when you say something that I want to highlight, and these are my words, not yours, but I feel like it's what you're saying is, I call it allow your being to inform your doing.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't want to assume that listeners understand even what being is. Yeah. So, for example, if I'm in a situation, let's say right now I'm someone who's experiencing a job loss or the fear of a job loss. My children are at home, my family's at home. I can't really go anywhere. I'm feeling stressed. I can't go to the gym. I'm having all this energy of whether it's fear or stress or frustration coming through my body. So, can you give some advice and suggestions on how you would manage that like feeling those things? How do we need to be? Like, what do How do we need to be? And then what do we need to do to support the being?
I would say it's two things, right? It's sitting with self and then letting it flow. So when I say sitting with self, most people, and it's something that I experienced, like I took a month and sat with myself for 60 minutes. Sitting with self, by the way, for your listeners, is people can call it meditation, people can call it visualization, whatever it is for you.
Writing, some people.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Mindfulness practices.
Yeah, mindfulness. Yeah. And it's in that mindfulness, from that mindfulness, then letting it flow. Because the thing is that being able to sit with self and really allow the sensations, thoughts, beliefs, stories to come and go, and then tap into what's inside, or even acknowledging what's coming up within self and then expressing it. And like you said, like it could be painting, it could be walking, it could be screaming, it could be crying, it could be a bunch of things. But being in that space to settle with self, sit with self, and then allow whatever that comes up to come up, and free of judgment. For anyone, like instead of being like, oh my God, I feel like crying, but I don't want to. No, well, cry, yell, scream, do whatever you need to outside of the box that you've grown yourself in. Be in that space to let yourself be who you are. I think those two things are really critical at this point, and I'm concerned that most people will shy away from it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, thank you. I think it's important. And I think a lot of us learn by repetition. And, the other day I was thinking, it's kind of trying to be funny about the situation because we do need to have moments of laughter. Where I was like, wow, this feels like forced meditation, like mandatory meditation. Like I get to be home and I meditate quite a lot as it is. And something that I notice, and then I want to get to Peter, is that when I sit in the stillness, which is the being, then I will often have the creative response to what I need to, quote, do. So I might sit in meditation with the concern about what's going to happen with our staff and our business and all this aid that's available and, what's the right one and how much and blah, 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 blah. And then I sit with all that energy and I breathe. And then I'm like, okay, this is the next thing I need to do. I just need to simply read the article that Peter sent me. Thank you. Right? What's the one thing that I need to do right now? Not the 15 emails and text messages people are sending. What's the one thing? So it kind of almost helps us, I feel, when we can sit and be and allow and notice, yes, these are all the things that are coming up. Let me catch my breath. And now I'm able to actually focus on one thing that I can do right now. Right. And in some case, it is the painting, the screaming, the crying, the, whatever it is. So thank you for that, because I feel like listeners would benefit from having tangible, I need to know what to do. So Peter, in your experience of what's going on right now and, the masculine energy and the feminine energy, what would you like to share to listeners, or something that you feel would be helpful to navigate?
Well, thank you both for sharing. I mean, what's amazing about both of what you've said, it's like you said it's a forced meditation. And Paul is saying it's like we're forced to just sit back with ourselves and go inward. And I refer to this as the pause, the ultimate pause.
Yep.
Because being in this space where we're not supposed to, we're all in the same similar field, wellness, which is considered non-essential. I use quotation marks here because we really do know how essential it is. I mean, albeit this right here is essential to model, so people can hear models of it, both from masculine and feminine. The amazing thing is that being in this ultimate pause, I say, like I've said in the podcast with Paul, is allow. And then with that allowance, you lean into it.
Right.
You befriend it. You take that shadow, and instead of putting it behind you and burying it, and then it waking you up at night, and then you're tired and you can't sleep, and then you're irritated at your wife or husband that's home because they were never home before, or your kids that that are home, or whatever it is. If you're with a puppy that you decided to adopt now that you're home, and you're like, you can't put up with it because you're stressed because you have all this stuff going on, is the best thing to do is learn how to respond versus react. Know that this might be a long temporary, but this is temporary. And every situation that has gotten you to this point, both good and bad, has been temporary. And you've done a good job. You have done a damn good job to lead you to exactly where you are. Have you made bad decisions? Hell yeah. So have I. My hand is up. Have you made good decisions? Hell yeah. My hand is up too. But all of those decisions led you to this point. In this pause, in this reset, once that button is released and up again, and life is beginning to flow, notice how simplified you had to live in this pause so that when you're ready to come out of it, you come out of it slow with a very different lens. A very different lens. Like, wow, maybe that friendship that I had at work doesn't serve me anymore. Maybe I do need to look for a new job. Maybe, oh my God, this puppy wasn't a good idea to adopt and I need a trainer. Maybe working from home with my husband made me realize I don't want to be in a relationship with him, or my wife, I don't want to be in a relationship. I mean, you can't give your kids back, but that's one thing. But like, maybe this job, maybe I do need to work from home more. Maybe I need a job that allows that. Or maybe I need to be with this longer and not go back to work if you have that gift, being able to do that. So to me, the ultimate is just to sit with it. Sit with it. As they say, there are many books, there are many quotes, there are many one-liners that say stillness, and I'm saying this with capital words and even bigger words and letters, speaks. And in that speaking, what exactly are the lessons? What do I need to hear? Do you need to act on everything you hear? No. But you need to get clarity with it. Journaling really helps if you're not a meditator. Walking in silence without your phone, without the attachment of everything around you, without your dog, without your kids or husband or whatever, taking those solo walks. That could be a walking, moving meditation. You know, if you're a cigarette smoker, believe it or not, that's a form of meditation. Not that I advocate that stuff. You know, but being with these habits, being with these things, you have to allow this to take in, because you can't force this. You can't force your way out of this pause. You cannot force your way out of this pause. There's no way. Because then you're putting yourself at risk, your family at risk, and everybody else at risk.
Beautiful. I love how, thank you, that such deep sharing. And it connects back to, Paul, what you said at the start of the podcast, which was the transition and transformation that's going to happen in people and the way they work in their relationships and how they approach life in the world. And yeah, we get to kind of have a magnifying glass, if you will, on all those places to help inform us. And, you know, this is the part where I like to say too, like, this is an opportunity. And it's an opportunity to be able to practice some of these ways of being, of allowing and accepting, and also gratitude. Gratitude and maybe humility. I know in my own life, it's like, wow, Stephanie, like, look at how you didn't appreciate this or that now that it's not here, or now that you can't go into your business and you don't, right? It's amazing. And it has given me a whole other understanding of what some people experience in this world, which then helps me to develop the compassion. And I think that's important that all of us, you know, as we wrap up here, remember that compassion is so important as we journey now. It's always important, but it's so important because, you know, Paul, you speak about self-love, right? And Peter, you talk about being, you know, honestly looking at the things in our life that maybe need to shift. And in my experience, when I can hold it all in compassion, myself and others, it makes it so much easier to deal with. And I know that it starts with myself. So noticing the moments where I'm frustrated or scared or tired or whatever, overload information, whatever's going on, that I get to have compassion for myself. And that almost is a form of allowing, when I like stop fighting and I stop resisting and I can go, it's okay. You're allowed to be tired. It's okay. You're allowed to not know right now what's happening. It's okay not to know when you're going to open and how you're going to be able to help this or whatever, fill in the blank. So yeah, so I am grateful for the opportunity for us to come together and to share and to hold space for each other, and also for the people that are listening and the people that are really needing to hear this information, to know that they're not alone, that they're not crazy, that it's all part of awakening and transformation and really being able to be love in action, which is compassion. Right? Yep. And starting with ourselves. So is there anything else, gentlemen, that you want to share in closing? I know we will meet again for another podcast, but for now I wanted to get something out there for people to really use some of these tools: allow, pause, surrender, big stuff. Anything in closing, Paul, you want to add, a tidbit or a tip?
Yeah, what you just said brought up a lesson that I learned. I re-taught myself today, and it's around the patience. Mm-hmm. And for your listeners, I encourage us all, myself included, to practice our patience with self so that we can have patience with others. Because as we go through this time right now, people, I'm telling you, people that have yet to really have any sort of meditation or mindfulness practice, they may act out in ways that are going to piss you off, that are going to get under your skin. And it's unconscious for them because they may be feeling and experiencing some things intrinsically that they have no idea what the heck is going on. So my ask and my want for people that are listening to this, and for myself too, is to really practice the patience with self so that we may be able to offer patience for another, because then I'll also allow another person to have patience and compassion for themselves as well. So that's my offer.
Well said. Thank you. And if anybody wants to reach out to you directly, Paul, what contact do you want to give?
They can reach me at New Wellness Guide, NEWELLNESS Guide, GUIDE, on Instagram. And they can also reach me on Facebook, Paul Randolph Newell, direct messages. I usually find I respond to those faster than I do to email. So that's the easiest way to get in contact with me.
Awesome. Thank you. You're welcome. And Kamesh, Peter, what would you like to add in final words of wisdom?
Wow, that was such a great sharing, Paul, for closing.
Thank you, brother.
And to elaborate off what you said, because you said it so beautifully, so amazingly. So yes, to have patience with thyself, model that patience in your family, model that patience in your friendships. Model that patience in your work relationships. Model that patience with yourself. This is not what is going on in this lifetime. I pray we'll never see it again. But many of us individually have felt this kind of this reset, this retreat, that things were taking away from us because they were not in our control. And if you really think about it, we really are not in control.
Truth.
So I would just say simply for people just to listen to the words from this podcast as we have all shared and given simple ideas. It's not that hard to take a walk. It's not that hard to turn off your phone for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. It's not that hard to find a free resource on YouTube for a guided meditation. There's so many free resources out there, and you may be overwhelmed with, trying to get your kids connected in the morning with Zoom and with their lessons and teaching. But once you have them set up, there's a time before, once you leave them with their work and you go on to your work, there is time between you connecting with your job and that email or whatever it is, that conference call, for you to sit with yourself and take one long inhale followed by one long exhale. It starts with that simple breath. Our life force, our prana. Most of us are chest breathers. I was one of those. I've had to unlearn everything I have learned until I was 50 years old, until I became a yoga teacher. I have been unlearning my whole life. I'm grateful for the life I had before that,
That's a whole other podcast, by the way.
Yeah, I want in on that one too.
Mm-hmm. Just so you know.
I've been unlearning my whole life. And here I am, relearning and leaning into what is. It's the only way I can explain is lean into what is. And I think, and I hope this is going to be on the podcast, that we should keep this conversation going, because this series of conversations can be so helpful for us to revisit, because we're still going to experience the highs and lows, right? And collectively in this energy, we can revisit it, but also to help model for people who are listening. And my hope is that one person that listens to this podcast gets something out of it. And if they are struggling, don't hesitate to reach out to me on Instagram at kamesh.peter.iocovello. Or call me directly. Here's my phone number, 914-715-0226. Call, text. I will definitely get back to you.
Beautiful. Thank you, gentlemen. And yes, the conversation will continue because it needs to. And this is the beginning of the journey. And, bringing together the masculine and the feminine energies, and, something that I want to leave listeners with, especially Paul, you had said something that, about how we kind of sometimes, how other people's behavior in this time, they might be acting unconsciously. So I am very mindful about the people that are in relationships that are maybe acting out and might bring about the destruction of a relationship when it doesn't necessarily need to be such, right? So one of the things that I think is important as masculine and feminine energy is to recognize that sometimes what we're dealing with in relationship is just the different energies, how we communicate. And I think of that often, like when I'm, the feminine energy is very much about the soil and the nourishment. And we're able to kind of do a lot of different things. I'm speaking as feminine energy and as a woman myself. Maybe we have a lot of balls in the air. We're able to multitask. And maybe sometimes I get upset with the masculine energy that seems to me to be very singularly focused. So me being the soil and the masculine energy being the seed, if I understand that that's kind of what the feminine energy does, that I can support that seed. And I can appreciate that seed, because guess what? If that's a seed to an apple tree and that seed drops in my soil, if I nourish that seed, it's going to bear fruit. And as the soil, I can receive a lot of seeds. I can receive a seed for an apple tree and a seed for a cherry tree. But that cherry seed ain't going to be an apple seed, friends. So stop acting as if, right? So that's just maybe a to be continued about how we can talk about the masculine and the feminine energy in relationship. And then on a larger context, how it connects to how we are beings and creators in this world, and how we continue to bring them together in harmony so that we can support and love each other and have relationships that are amazing, because we understand where we're coming from. And we celebrate, instead of getting angry that, he only can focus on one thing at a time and I can focus on 10. Well, shit, maybe that's a damn good thing, right? Amen. So that's the offering. It was a pleasure to have both of you on today. I thank you. And until next time, let's go.
Stay tuned.
If you find this podcast helpful, and if it provokes you in any way, meaning you love what I have to say, or maybe you don't like it because it triggers you, awesome. I've moved something in you, and perhaps you will want to share this with someone else in your life who might be interested in being moved. So you can find us on Apple, on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts. And as always, feel free to share links with people you love, because remember, we are in relationship with each other. So the more that you are present and you invite other people on the journey, the more peaceful world we will live in, because we will be together understanding these concepts. So I thank you for your support, and you help us keep the show going by sharing it, by liking it, by giving us reviews, and helping us to grow. Thank you.